And I think that's the masculine imperative. If someone's going to attack your wife, that's when you become a hero for her. You have to. What kind of man are you if you're not? And you can apply that to other things. If you apply that to your ancestors, or you apply that to God, or you apply that to your beliefs or your core principles as a man, then you can be a hero anytime you want. So
it's so funny that you say that, because it really does. Everything goes back to biology. I think about this all the time, no matter how much sociology is behind everything, telling men to act like women and women to act like men. At the end of the day, women want a masculine man. And when they don't have a masculine man and they beat their man into submission, they're not attracted to them anymore. When it's a tail in between, it's just not attractive anymore. And I used to maybe think of this boyfriend that I had when you were talking about, just defending the realm, this sort of responsibility that men have. And I remember sitting there realizing that I had to break up with him, because I thought that if somebody burst through the door with a gun, I was going to have to be the one that would have to defend us, because he was just such a flower.
100%.
And it's in society is yet blaring at men to do the opposite. And
they're trying to confuse us.
This is why I think you have a platform. This is my whole theory that I built in my head about why you have a platform, is because Lena Dunham came before you, right? And I think that for years, men were told to act like sissies. Yep. Men were told to put your tail between your legs. That was the message, the agreed upon message that came with, Hillary Clinton running, the Me Too movement, all of these things where men were basically told that if you have a masculine instinct, you're guilty.
Yep.
And then inevitably, because there is an equilibrium in this world, because there was Lena Dunham's, because there were the Taylor Swifts, because there was the girl squads, eventually what would have to happen was that it was going to have to be evened out by someone saying, no, F that, be a man.
Yeah. And I don't feel guilty for being a man. And I don't think any man should.
No, I don't think so either.
And I think that the most annoying thing about all of this is just how genuinely hypocritical it is. Because there's all this feminine movement and we don't need men and men don't matter, etc. That's
music too, men ain't the whole, it's a agreed upon message that men suck.
Absolutely. And it's only in the most favorable possible circumstances where females will say that. And that's what's so disingenuous about it, because as soon as things actually begin to get hard, the closer we get to the realities of life, the closer we get to the unfortunate circumstances of the world, and they exist in many places, the faster you will see people look for traditional masculinity to protect them. So it's not even like it's a genuine belief. That's what's so upsetting about it, is that it's just, I don't know if these people are delusional or if they're deliberately hypocritical. I'm not sure which one it is.
I think they're brainwashed. I think it's a two-pronged approach. I think it's the cultural messaging, and also in the education system, they're actively learning that this feminism is what you need to aspire towards. Like when you get out of school, women, you should want to compete with men in climbing the corporate ladder. I actually think there's a mass brainwash that's taking place.
Oh, completely. They want to neuter men. And the way you do that is to empower women to a point where they're now the dominant power, especially in the Western world. I believe we live in a matriarchy. I don't believe it's a patriarchy like we're told it is. I actually believe it's the other way around. I can't think of a single law that benefits men over women, but I can certainly think of some that benefit women over men. Mm-hmm. I think it's very dangerous to be a man in the world today. I think that if women want to destroy a man, it's extremely easy to do. We can look at my current scenario and situation I'm in, and many other men are in the same scenario. I can't think of many examples of a man falsely accusing a woman of something and her losing her entire life, where I can certainly think of ones the other way around. So yeah, they want to turn men into eunuchs because their intention is to make us all slaves. And I say that and it rolls off my tongue and people just hear it and they don't actually think about what I'm saying. Their intention is to turn men into eunuchs because they want to make us all slaves. I want you to actually understand exactly what I'm saying to you, because at the bottom line of revolution has always been young military age males, and they don't want them to have enough balls or enough forward thinking or even enough care for anything outside of themselves to do something about it. Another thing people don't understand is that a lot of these attacks and a lot of things they're trying to do with the culture, especially, they're trying to inject such innate selfishness inside of people that they don't really care about anything that happens outside of themselves. Because then it's very difficult to give a shit about your community. It's very difficult to have any kind of genuine care about your town or your country or an issue. No, they just want you to be self-absorbed, semi-depressed, because depressed people don't fight that hard, watching porn, living inside of your own mind, convinced that somehow you're oppressed for some reason, on the internet typing tweets. That's what they want you to do. And they're going to try and keep you there. And genuine masculinity, yeah, to a degree it's protective, and to a degree also it has parameters. You can't be a man who doesn't say no. You can't be a man who doesn't have standards for himself and for people around him. I've got labeled as ultra misogynistic because I believe that a man should have standards in his relationship. I believe a man should avoid dishonest people, male and female. You should avoid, if you're a dishonest person, if you lie, If you're going to deceive me, it doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman. I don't want to have anything to do with you. I was sitting talking on a panel show saying that women who are dishonest and promiscuous are not the kind of woman I'd ever want to associate with. And I was labeled misogynistic for that. So it's crazy how they'll attack you, and they'll attack you so violently and so endlessly and repeat it so many times in a bid to beat your soul down. That's what they want, especially from me. I truly believe I'm the number one prize for them to get. If they can get me to just give up. If we can get Andrew Tate to just give up. Being a man's bad. Come on, Andrew, say it. And it's like, it's dangerous, one thing, but it's actually genuinely also sad. When I analyze the situation in the world we're in today, part of me feels sad that we've ended up in this place where the people who are in charge are so evil and their plans are so heinous and the consequences so dire that they know they can only implement them if they genuinely remove the warrior spirit from every man on the planet. Yeah. It's kind of sad.
And the warrior spirit is really important. And it's something that I speak about a lot, that men need to go be men. Even in the capacity of my marriage, my husband needs his guy time. I need my girl time.
Yep.
The masculine and feminine, it's very important. The fact that my husband hunts and shoots and does these things, that's very attractive to me.
Yep.
To know that if the grocery store is faded away, that he could go catch dinner.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? That he knows how to skin an animal.
Absolutely.
And they poison that. Look at the hunters. Look at the way they view hunters. They look at people in the South.
Yep.
This is why they know how to ranch. They know how to farm. They know how to survive on their own, which is why they start to poison that mentality, which is why I think it's really important that you're speaking to young men about why it is okay to be a man, giving them permission to be a man in a capacity that I can't give them that permission. In the same way that I try to give women the permission to know that don't allow them to delude you to believing that this is femininity. It is not femininity, Lena, to have your husband offer your body to another man on camera. That's the poisoning. They teach women that this is sexual freedom, that this is sexual liberation.
Yeah.
I looked at that and I saw a slave relationship. I saw a master offering his slave to another person because he was just so, I just love Andrew Tate. Would you like to see with my wife? I would be okay with that. That is horrific. That is not femininity. That is not masculinity.
Correct. I absolutely agree with you on that point. You're totally right there. And I think that's probably one of the most misogynistic things that have happened on the internet in recent times, but perhaps they're on the right side of the political spectrum. I don't know which side they're on, but if they're on the correct side, you seem to get away with things. But it's very interesting what you're saying about your husband and fishing and hunting and stuff. I completely agree with you. And there's another thing about masculinity as a whole that I don't think that a lot of people want to address, but it's something that's certainly large in terms of my following. Because if we break down, if anyone's watching this now and they're trying to understand, why is Andrew Tate so popular? Well, I believe I speak to the base instincts of
base instincts. 100%.
Base instincts. And one of the base instincts also for men, I don't think a lot of people understand, is to a degree is peacocking and showing off to a degree. And I do that fantastically. But it is. And if you look at men of old, and they used to conquer, and they'd wear a feather from the man they killed, or a piece of gold they stole. There was always that degree of flexing, showing off. And I think it's being unapologetically masculine and saying, yeah, I'm a big, successful man, and I can afford all this stuff, and this is who I am, and I've worked my ass off, and this is what I have, and I'm not sorry about it, and I'm dedicated, and I'm hardworking, and no, I'm not. I don't feel like I should have to cower or hide or apologize to the world for any of these things. And I think that's the reason why a lot of men find affinity in my message. And you're right. Baseline masculinity is being attacked, and women naturally don't find it attractive to find a man who's not that way anyway. But baseline masculinity is being attacked because they want you absolutely not dependent on the government, so that the government can decide whether you eat that day. And I don't want to be a pessimist, but I still think in many ways, almost with technological advances, it's going to be very difficult to resist. I think it's actually scary. I don't know how the world's going to be in 100 years from now, but I don't know if there's going to be much freedom left. I don't know about you, but when I look at the things they're doing with CBDCs and electric cars and the way the currency is going to change, it's going to be very difficult to resist without literally starving to death. Mm-hmm. So I don't know what's going to come. So
learn to farm.
Learn to farm.
Hunt,
that's right.
Don't let them convince you that's somehow racist and sexist and backwards and veganism. Like, you better learn to do all of those things. Because
we need men now more than ever, right? Yeah. And also I do believe, and this is going to get me called misogynistic, but I'm going to say it anyway. I do believe we need masculinity, especially in the households, because I believe that women are more emotionally led and men are more logically led.
It's true.
And I think that the propaganda machine and the news machine primarily uses emotional arguments as opposed to logical arguments.
And women fall for the emotional
arguments. So if you have a woman who's in charge of the household and her man can't resist her commands, and they put on the news, be afraid, COVID's going to kill everybody. She gets afraid. Now you have a whole household of people with masks on, 8 vaccines, and down the insanity hole. Whereas a man with logic would sit there and do exactly what I did and say, look, all right, let's calm down for 2 minutes. Let's just wait because the news lies. So let's just wait till Wednesday before we start taking injections. Let's chill. So I think also masculinity is needed because what they're going to do when they try and make us all slaves, they're going to use emotional arguments. And they're going to come along with, I was talking about COVID with someone the other day, and we were saying how insane it all was. And I said, imagine how insane something like COVID will be once the police force are robotic. Imagine once it's all AI, no mask, done. Like, at least in certain countries, and I know because I traveled the entire world during COVID, I'll say here publicly on the internet, I broke every single COVID rule. I broke every single lockdown restriction. I broke all of them. Every single one. Never listened to any of them.
I broke more.
It's a competition.
Yeah, so if it's a competition, I broke more.
Sure?
From day one, I was like, absolutely not. I didn't even let people that were wearing masks into my house. I was like, my baby will not look up and see somebody wearing a mask in his crib. That's scary.
Yeah.
Looking like Bane looking over his crib. Like, that's just not happening.
Amazing. But, yeah, I mean, me and my brother, we moved to Sweden. We resist the COVID thing from the absolute beginning. We tried our best because Sweden was completely wide open. Absolute insanity. But yeah, even the COVID thing, if you look at it, the emotional argument that was used and how they controlled the world, and they're going to use emotional arguments to control us with everything. I talk about the police force being AI. What they're going to eventually do is say, cops shoot people, humans make mistakes, cops are racist. We're going to give you robot cops that never make mistakes because cops are racist and cops can make mistakes, but these robots never make mistakes ever. And then once all the police force are completely robotic and they've removed all our weapons, you think something like COVID 2.0 isn't coming? You think you're not going to be locked in your house? You think they're just going to let you live in peace and walk around outside? Are you an idiot? And they're going to do all of this with emotional arguments. They're not
That's why they want a matriarchy.
Absolutely, because with a matriarchy, you can affect it with emotionality. You can sit there and say, the planet is dying. Don't you care about the trees? Give us all your money. And people will sit there and go, oh, yeah, I do feel bad about the planet. Okay, it's just an extra 18% tax. And they can fall for it. So emotional arguments are how you get your way with anything. If you give me somebody, if you put somebody in front of me, I can convince with an emotional argument. I can convince them almost anything. Almost anything. Logic is much harder to do. So we need masculinity even in the household. And I'm just talking about baseline masculinity of just the logic and the rock solid self-assurance to sit there and say, no, I'm in charge of this house. Let's all just calm down. Well, let's not get emotionally led by this news channel. And let's be very smart about what we do and how we react to things. And that's why it's under attack. And I think I talk about revolutions and I talk about men being the military age males who are going to eventually stand up, etc. But I'm not be doomsdays about anything. I don't want to get arrested for any accusations. But even just having a masculine essence in a household makes the whole household harder to psyop. I truly believe that. And I can just think of COVID, and I use it as an example because it's the most recent large psyop they've attempted on us, where the amount of people I saved personally, I must have saved 200 people's lives from that vaccine. Me personally, just because me as a man, they'd come to me and go, you know, I want to travel. And I'd say, listen, I don't even have time to explain to you, but have I ever been wrong? No, don't get it. Okay. A year later, they're like, I'm so glad I didn't get that. I'm like, I told you. Like, it's amazing, like what a masculine essence can do. So that's another reason it's under attack, because if they can remove the masculine essence from society, well, now you have a society. Imagine a society where you can control purely with emotional arguments. We're almost there.
We are in a matriarchy, and this is why they accuse me of being an internalized misogynist, because I'm able to think through and acknowledge the flaws of what happens in society when women get power. And if you want to know what happens, look around you. Women fall for emotional arguments the entire time. Show us a commercial, show us. It's so sad. And before they get to the rational aspects of it, they're already invested emotionally. And I think that virtually every societal ill that we are facing today is because of women. And I think the greatest recent example of that is the Bud Light controversy, because, trans people were just playing dress up as women, invaded every women's space, and women said, oh, but I feel bad because it's how he identifies at the inside, without thinking through the fact that you're quite literally disappearing yourselves, right? You're quite literally saying, I will cease existing before I let this grown man who's wearing a wig have a bad feeling. That's insane. That is a patently insane emotional conclusion to come through. Yeah. Then Dylan Mulvaney sipped one beer, and Kid Rock was out there with an AK and Bud Light collapsed because men said absolutely not. And I give that example because women need to realize how backwards it is that it took men to stand up to say something was wrong when it was so obviously patently wrong. Yeah. Nobody cared for years until men stood up to it. So yeah,
completely, because it's emotional arguments. And if we also analyze, there's certain things that women can do so much better than men. I said this the other day. I was saying to my brother had his daughter here and my niece was here. And I said, isn't it amazing? I found this amazing. I said, isn't it amazing the patience a mother has with a toddler? I'm like, she's been listening to Peppa Pig for 4 hours. I would lose my mind. I couldn't do it. I simply couldn't do it. So women have this emotionality, which is so fantastic when it's properly used, when it's put in the place it's supposed to be. I would never drop my child off to a daycare full of men. Would you drop your 3-year-old child to a daycare run exclusively by males? No. It'd be weird. It's just something about it is weird. I wouldn't trust the men not to lose their temper with the kid. I wouldn't understand why all these men want to be around these children all day. It would be a very weird scenario. So we all understand innately our gender roles, innately on some level. So women have a fantastic superpower when it's properly used. But like everything on earth, if you have a superpower or any kind of power at all and it's put in the wrong direction, it can be destructive. Water, if it's going through a dam, can power a city. If it's not going through a dam, it's a flood. So we have all this emotionality put in the wrong direction, and now they're in positions of power or whatever, or they're controlling the culture, or they're controlling how households are run, and they can fall for these emotional traps, these very simple, basic emotional traps. It's for grandma. The most basic, dumb level. And I sit there and say, grandma's 98. 98-year-olds die. And I'm not saying she should die. I'm saying 98-year-olds get sick. Who said it was COVID? Prove it was COVID. She got the flu last year. Like, what? Have you lost your mind? But grandma.
Which is funny because I think the average life expectancy is 73. So if they've made it to 92,
they've done great.
They've done great.
Absolutely.
And I said that, and people thought that that was so harsh and so mean.
Because there you go. Harsh, mean, emotionality.
Yeah.
And emotionality is used against people, which is also why they don't like stoicism. Is why when you have a man who's hard to emotionally affect, they also see him as a threat. I've had it from a lot of people. I've had some of the hate mail I've got, and I get a lot of, I probably get about 10,000 emails a day. I'd say about 9,000 of them are support and 1,000 of them are fervent weirdos. And the weirdos are like, you're a psychopath because all this is happening to you. You don't even care. It's like, they're threatened by the fact that I'm stoic. They're threatened by the fact that I won't cry and lose my mind over it. They're like, oh, he has emotional control. He's a threat, because then they can't lie to me. They can't psyop me. And they want you to be emotionally incontinent. And this is another thing they're teaching men. They're teaching men to act out your feelings. Well, why are they doing that? Because that makes you an emotional person and you're easier to control. They don't care that that damages society by extension. Because when you tell men to act out their feelings, that's why you get school shooters. That's why you get rapists. That's why you get murderers. Why does somebody murder someone? Because he's mad. He's acting out his feelings. He's not a very stoic person if he goes, I hate you, bang. Right? So they're teaching all this emotional incontinence in men, trying to pretend they care about society. It's destroying society in real time. They have no interest in actually preserving anything that's important about masculinity. And the only reason they're doing it is because that allows them to use emotional arguments. Now they can sit and say, okay, these men act out how they feel. So let's make them angry, and they might riot. And let's make them riot on this street. Let's leave some bricks on this street. You understand what I'm saying? It's all absolutely utterly done on purpose. And it's kind of amazing to me that nobody sits there and understands the best way you can rebel against the slave mind and resist the matrix is just be the kind of person who uses logic, is stoic, is emotionally controlled, is physically strong, because a strong body is a strong mind, who refuses to be told or labeled as something. You can't label me as a depressed person. You can't label me as some kind of disease or some kind of personality disorder. You can't label me a color. I'm Andrew Tate. This is who I am. I work hard for my last name. I understand what's right and wrong. I'm going to do my absolute best. And that alone in and of itself is an act of rebellion against these people.
Society really started going down the drain when we started getting into mental health awareness. And this is maybe one of my most controversial viewpoints, but I say it over and over on the show. Everybody needs a therapist or talking about their feelings. The truth is that every feeling you have isn't valid, doesn't need to be explored. Sometimes you just have a wacky feeling and you just let it go. And because my grandfather was such an impact on my life, strongest man that I've ever known, didn't shed a tear at my grandmother's funeral. They were together from the time he was 17 years old until her dying day. I'm certain he collapsed when he got home.
Yeah, of course.
But this traditional display of masculinity, in my grandfather's perspective, that a man needs to let it die in his chest, before displaying this emotion, had an impact on me. And when I see, like, I guess to give a cultural example, someone like Prince Harry, on TV, with his arms like this, breathing and showing what he learned in therapy, it makes me want to die a little. Completely. It makes me want to die a little when I see men acting like this.
Completely.
And that's controversial because they're supposed to say, oh my God, he's so brave. It's so stunning. Like, he's showing this side of him. Everything about Prince Harry to me is what a man should not be. Right?
Absolutely.
What you've done to your family, betraying your family, allowing a woman to assert that much control over you that you would for profit betray your family. I mean, everybody's got a family. Everybody's got family issues. Don't even let me get started, but the idea of selling out your family and then going
the royal family, selling out the royal family. And yeah,
what happened, it's such a display of what's happened to men, what's happened to masculinity. He's giving up his guns. He's never going to do this anyway. It's all of it is such a public example of what can happen.
The thing is, I know what's so interesting is I know how miserable he is.
He's miserable.
There's no way a man can be happy in that scenario, because I think masculine happiness comes from strength and to a degree excellence, and also comes from respect. Men want to be respected, and he doesn't respect himself. His family doesn't respect him, and his woman doesn't respect him. I know how unhappy he is. I know how unhappy she is by extension. It's just an unhappy, miserable house. He gave up everything and gained absolutely and utterly nothing. This whole therapy thing, the reason I believe they push therapy so heavily is because it goes into something I said a little bit earlier about selfishness. If you convince somebody that they have to spend hours and hours per week sitting in a chair talking about that feeling they had last Thursday in the kitchen.
It's crazy.
It's insane.
Crazy.
You want to talk about creating mental illness. There it is. This exasperates problems. This makes it worse. And it also builds this culture of absolute and utter selfishness. Excuse me, they're trying to put you in jail for the rest of your life effectively because they're going to enslave you and they're going to control all the money and they're going to make you get injections you don't need. Yeah, but I'm sad. I got therapy. I'll talk about it later. Yeah. That's all they want. They just want you to be so obsessed with how you feel in your own mind that you can't even look outside of yourself and care about anything. Right. It's part of the propaganda machine. It's part of the mechanism to turn us all into docile farm animals. I said this to somebody the other day. They were talking about how they feel. And I say, who cares how you feel? And he goes, well, what do you mean? Well, I don't care. You're telling me I know you and I don't care. So all the people who don't know you don't care. The woman you want doesn't care. You can't go up to a chick at a bar and say, you know what? Usually I'm really charming. Today I'm a bit sad. Can you give me a pass? Can you let me off? She'll be like, go away, weirdo. The chick you want doesn't care. The job you're supposed to perform at doesn't care. If the man who wants to mug you decides to pull a machete, he doesn't care. You can't say, bro, I'm not in the mood for a fight today. Tomorrow, please. Nobody cares. So why do you care? All the people out here in the world don't care, but you're going to sit there and you're going to carry the only person in the world who cares. You're going to walk around telling everybody, trying to find somebody who gives a shit. Good luck. Because what's going to happen is you're going to walk around feeling sorry for yourself, trying to find somebody who cares. You might find somebody who pretends to care long enough for you to get a little bit of dopamine. But all in all, you're wasting time in a hyper-competitive world where people like me who perform regardless of how they feel are just going to perpetually bury you. And then you're going to sit there and wake up and go, why am I a loser? Well, because when Andrew was sad, he continued to perform. When Andrew was in jail, his business didn't fall apart. He was doing push-ups every day. His body didn't fall apart. Nothing about his life degraded when he was in a jail cell surrounded by cockroaches. You're in a plushy bed at home, crying about what? And you expect the male world's hyper-competitive. So you're not allowed almost as a man to put that much importance on how you feel. You don't have time to care about it because you have too much to do. This is what I find so remarkable. If I feel sad, I don't think, how do I stop myself? I need to not feel sad. I just go to work. I got stuff to do. I'm a man. I have things to do every single day. This whole therapy garbage, I can't think of a way faster to ruin your mindset and destroy your ability to resist the perils of life than going to therapy.
And the overdiagnoses of everything. It's like, you have this, you have that. And then people take that as an excuse to not ever have to get better.
Oh, absolutely.
Now I can be permanent because I realize I've got this. I went to the doctor and the doctor says that I have this. And so that's the reason why I don't respond. I've got ADHD. I think now it's like 1 in every 2 people has ADHD. And that's why I'm not able to focus and do my homework or complete a task or keep going to the gym every single day. I hate it. It's the self-fulfilling prophecy.
It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. And I really can't think of a quicker way to destroy your mind than go to therapy. Part of me, if I had time to waste, Candace, which I don't, because I've been on house arrest long enough, and once I'm out of here, I'm going to enjoy myself. But if I had time to waste, I would love to go to start therapy. I would love to, like, imagine me, Andrew Tate. I'm going to go to a therapist, and she's not going to know who I am, and I'm going to sit there, I'm going to do therapy, and I'm going to do a video. I might actually do this. It's actually a great idea. I might do a video after each therapy about what bullshit it was. And just sitting there talking about, okay, when you were 8, yeah, what happened when you were 8? Because in your childhood, not everything's because of my childhood. Not everything works that way. Like, it's so asinine. I've actually had conversations with therapists, I think twice in my life. I did a TV show in England and I had to speak to a therapist. And then I think it was another TV show, 2 TV shows. I had to speak to these therapists. And I sat there and said, I don't believe in your science, because in math, 1 + 1 is 2. And we understand that. Whereas with what you teach, you can have a guy who doesn't drink alcohol because his dad was an alcoholic, and a guy who is an alcoholic because his dad was an alcoholic. So how can you have the same scenario and 2 completely different outcomes? She goes, oh yeah, but there's general rules we can follow. I said, then let's end the conversation. I'm not a general person. I'm exceptional. So can we just stop wasting everybody's time here? Because all your general rules don't apply to me. I'm smarter than you. What have you achieved? Goodbye. I'm a world champion. See ya. Like it's garbage. And I really do believe, I think there is this mass drive to instill the idea of absolute selfishness in people. I think they're trying to, when I really analyze the ideal citizen they want, the ideal citizen is, yes, docile, and yes, he's eunuch, but he's also ultimately selfish, because then you don't care about community. And I think therapy is a fantastic way to make you selfish. Because that's all you talk about is, what do you talk about? Garbage.
Yeah, why you have the right to act this way, even if you're acting terrible.
Why did I do? Well, when I was 9. Oh, get a life.
Yeah, that's really Prince Harry's book, honestly.
Is it?
Yeah, I could only get past the first 2 chapters. I was like, it should have just been called Privileged. You know what I mean?
And this is the thing.
These aren't even struggles.
And here's the thing. I think Margaret Thatcher said the best upbringing you can have is good parents and no money. Because you look at Prince Harry you can't talk about anything better for a perfect upbringing. Royal family. Come on. It's not his fault, right? Royal family, fine. But he was supposed to have gone to the army. He went to Afghanistan and supposedly he fought, but obviously he didn't. He played
Xbox.
Of course. He just sat in the back. But if you don't give a man struggle, look what he becomes. Tell me the kind of man, if I were to say to you, imagine a man who's never struggled in his life. Physically, mentally, everything's gone perfect for him. He's born in the royal family. Everything's been perfect for him his whole life. Is that the kind of man anybody respects? Is that the kind of man anyone wants to be? And struggle is subjective, right? So Prince Harry dealing with his current problems of his wife nagging, to him, that's full mental breakdown, right? My problems are obviously much larger, but struggle is subjective. To us, they're almost on the same level. But if you were to compare them side by side, they're absolutely nothing. So as a man, you have to build resilience, and you build resilience through going through something and building a tolerance to it. And this guy's had such a privileged life that he's ended up a miserable, depressed, unhappy person. So this is what's actually very interesting. When men come to me or young boys come to me and talk about something bad that happened to them, I said, good. Absolutely, you're not really good. You should be glad that thing happened to you, because that's the reason you're going to be the man who can resist the perils of life in the future. If bad things don't happen to you, you're going to end up like Prince Harry. You don't want to end up like that dude, do you?
No one does.
Yeah, exactly. So your life's going to be so easy. You're going to get to the end result and your wife's just going to wreck you. So you need to have all these bad things happen to you so you build the mental resilience. And that's another thing about masculine.